Okay, on your 3x5 card, you, at the beginning of class, you wrote down your opinion based on the video that you saw about not counting homework for a grade. And then we went through the role play. So I would like for you to get that 3x5 card back out and share some of your thinking, and if it's changed since the role play. Anyone like to volunteer? Okay.
So before I said that I agreed where it was not motivating to punish children for not doing their homework, for all the reasons that we've stated, time, stress. I said that kids sit still in the classroom for 6 to 8 hours, then afterwards they need to be kids. They need to not just spend all day like adults learning and pushing through work. As a parent, I have to drag one of my children through their homework every night. There are tears, there's fighting every single night. So then I said that it could be occasional, and if a sign should be completed, in my opinion, should be graded if it's assigned. But daily homework is not helpful. And then after the activity, I put in that I did like the part about the age-appropriate work, because I do believe that homework has merit. So even though I feel like they have, I guess what my real opinion was in the beginning was that they had too much homework, and a lot of that useless, just kind of doing it to do it. Like if you're going to assign it, maybe it should be a little bit more bang for your buck kind of a.
So what if it's not for a grade, but you're getting feedback on it?
In my opinion, that's still kind of like, it's almost like a grade to me. I guess feedback and grade in my mind are the same thing, because to me, I look at grades like feedback. You know, so if you do it and you get a D, well, why are you getting a D? So feedback's like.
Sometimes we get grades without feedback.
Yeah.
And so can we get feedback without grades and still be meaningful to a
Yes.
student or motivating?
I think the feedback is probably the most aspect of that.
Okay. Who else wants to share?
I'll go. Mine's very similar. I agree, because learning should be the objective, and students tend to actually learn less when doing review work at home. And it should be used to be able to finish classwork, stuff that wasn't reached in class. So in many ways, mine hasn't changed too much. I do believe that there is a purpose for homework, but I don't think either learning something new or just doing pointless exercises serves the purpose of homework.
Anybody else want to share?
I said that we don't know what happens in a student's homework. Some students might not be able to actually do homework because of maybe the environment. Maybe they have to go and help their parents out with certain jobs and stuff. And so that means that the content must be learned in the classroom. And yeah, basically enforced into homework. But I think that also doesn't hurt the student as much if they don't do it. And then also the time limit thing. It's very helpful. What if they're very busy? Also with that thing, the time limit is very.
So you're not punishing them if they don't do it, or if they're not able to do it?
For me, the one thing that I've always thought about, like especially in high school and stuff like that, if you've got 7 or 6 different class periods, I don't know if you have a page due or a paper due for me tomorrow, and you have 50 algebra 2 questions, and you have an art assignment that's due. Like, I don't know what goes on outside of the realm of my own classroom, and whereas like I feel like whenever I give homework, it's stuff that like I'd be really excited to do because it's my content area, and I've been really pushing hard for it for the past X amount of years. But whereas like some people just don't like history, and like some people just don't like math, like that's just how it is. So the only time that I would want to give homework is if like, you know, say we have a bunch of school days one year, if it's like an extension of the learning process. So if like I'm able to give them the bare bones of the materials so they can go home and kind of do further research, then that'd be something. But I feel like it always needs to be graded, because then it's just, you just give people work to do work. Like I don't think that.
So you don't think you can give meaningful work and not grade it?
And not grade it, yeah. I mean, that's just, I feel like as humans, that's just the way that we're wired. You know, no one wants to do, like if you're told that, if I was told that, here's an example, there are set amount of days that you can miss class in college, right? You can have 2 absences for this class, for example. If I was told, or you know, anyone else is told, like, you don't have to be here, there's no set amount of times, half the class wouldn't show up. It's just the way that we are, because we're wired for that grade. You know, we want to be here. We want
Can
to
you be
we're paying
rewired?
for it. I think that it would have to start very, very young,
Yeah.
but at the same time, like, even if you're hammering it into kids at kindergarten, first grade, second grade, that like, yeah, it's not graded, but it is important, like, there
Well,
are so many
there's
people
intrinsic
that outside
motivation and
factors.
extrinsic motivation. And so getting to the place where we are motivated because of learning, not for grades. So grades are extrinsic motivators, whereas learning is intrinsic.
I think on that, it's the mentality of, if it's worth me doing it, it's worth you grading it.
Yeah, Yeah.
And so
And I
if
get
you're not
that.
gonna grade it, why should I have to do it?
right. Yeah, absolutely. And music, they only get 30 minutes of instruction time. They need practice. They have to practice that instrument at home. You know, in agriculture, there's lots of preparation outside of the classroom as it relates to competitions and field work that you do. And, you know, I taught chemistry and physics, and early in my career, there was lots and lots of homework. And I found that it was a battle, and for various reasons of going at home. Sometimes they weren't motivated. And as I progressed through my career, I gave less and less homework. I made super good use of my time in the classroom. And that's not to say that there wasn't ever any homework, but not like in the beginning. You know, in the 80s, our school, time, we had tons of homework. And that was, after A Nation at Risk, and we need to get back to basics. And so, the 70s was a lot of vocational education, and that was really pushed. And so there was a whole different philosophical stance on education. And then A Nation at Risk came out and said, the United States is falling behind, and we need to get back to basics. And so it was just, we were pounded with it. And so we tend to teach the way we were taught. And we have a lot more research right now. And I was sharing with a student recently that educational research, even though it's been going on for a number of years, is sort of in its infancy. Like, we think about medical research, and if we think about like maybe the early 1900s, and this is just sort of my take on this, where medicine was in the 1900s in terms of research, it's kind of like where education is with research now. So we're just now really learning, the brain's capacity and its plasticity, and how we learn, the best ways that we learn. So there's a lot of information out there. Okay, that's sort of an aside. So here's our homework on the screen. You also have it in front of you. So I would like for you to create your own philosophy of homework. It doesn't have to be huge, gigantic, but this is going to be important as you are looking for a job. If you're going to a school system, to a school, you need to know what their stance is on homework. You need to know what your stance is on homework, and see if they align. And it might be that there are things that you can not negotiate, but come to consensus on. Like, you might think, yes, that homework should be for a grade, and it should be given, and that school says you can give it, but it can't be for a grade. Can you live with that? And if not, then you need to go someplace else. But you also can go into an interview, compromise, yeah. You can, that's the word. You can go into an interview and speak intelligently based on research, in particular that case for and against homework, and give your philosophy of homework. So it's not like a big long page, but just a brief philosophical stance. I'm giving you options on how you would like to demonstrate that. It is on the discussion board. It's on there now. It's due the 26th. I want to put it in your calendar. It's also on the calendar on D2L. And if you just want to write it out, that's fine. If you want to create some sort of electronic or visual, if you want to do something artistic, that's your thing, by all means. We're not going to do Flipgrid for this, because I want it to be on the discussion board, but I think you can upload short videos onto a discussion board. So you've got some options there. And you'll notice it says be sure to cite the literature. So you've got the articles that you read for your piece, and then I gave you 3 articles. The case for and against homework is probably the most powerful in my opinion, but you should know that there's been research about homework is effective, and then more research that said that research is wrong, and this, so it's been just sort of back and forth. Also, I gave you this alternatives to traditional homework. So, having homework that's creative, that's interesting, that's different, that doesn't take too long, is important for students. And you all are students now, and you've been high school students and so forth. you know what it means to have too much homework. And you know what it means to have a homework assignment that might be kind of cool at the same time. So that's just for you to take a look at and give you some ideas. Do you have questions about the homework at this point?
If we're gonna do like a video, I know we might not be able to upload like a 5-minute video, and I think I may be a bit
Or you could
excessive.
do a link on YouTube.
That's what I was gonna
Yeah,
ask about.
so if you want to do a longer video and put it on your YouTube channel and just put the link up so I can see it and others can see it, that'd be great. I have 5 minutes, and so this is on D2L. This is the how to do a role play. So I'm just gonna go through this quickly. So anybody want a role play? So why do you use it? So it teaches the value of analyzing issues from different perspectives. This can be done in 20 minutes. And it can be. So it's done obviously in much shorter time frames. There's not as much reviewing that's able to go on, and not everyone gets to speak, right, as it relates to the reviewing. You make sure all your characters speak, and then you can elicit 1 or 2 questions from the audience. So these are the parts. You have your entry. So the entry had the activating strategy. Now your do now, for me, it could have been the activating strategy, but that spell worked for me coming in. And then got to thinking about homework, and then the activating strategy was the video about the school. That set up the dilemma, because you have a dilemma in a role play. The enactment was when you were actually role-playing and asking questions, and then the closure, assessment, and homework. So we're forming our groups, that when you present the dilemma, it sets the stage, a reason why we're together. You know, we're here for this community public hearing to discuss this issue. That becomes the activating strategy. You reveal your learning targets, you introduce your characters. For the setup, you provide the guiding questions. Should we give homework and should it be 4th grade? Those were my 2 questions. You select your actors at the last moment. That's up to you as a teacher, knowing your students, whether you want to select them, which is perfectly fine, or if you want them to self-select, but don't tell them in the beginning that they're going to self-select. Prepare non-actor and audience. So you all were members of the media, for example. And then the enactment, the teacher can play the part of the workshop leader and calls on each actor to, sort of mediates that whole process. And then just don't exclude the audience, be sure all can be heard. Note-taking occurs, because you see how I reminded you, I went back to I referenced the learning targets. I said in the beginning, but then I referenced, this is what we gotta do, so this is why. I did academic language differently. So I had word wall. No one did write, in my 8 o'clock, some people wrote down sentences, and that's fine that we didn't. I was able to use some of those words as I was teaching, so I was drawing your attention to the word wall. We had a new word added, so that was good.
We have a second one over here.
Yeah, the treatment, okay, yes, I did see that. Let's go that way. And then closure, make sure that all the learning targets are met, and you see it was active, right? So it wasn't just, okay, we just read that, and do you feel good about that? Because yes, you're gonna go, yes, I do, and you may not. So it's better to be actively involved and say, tell me about, how did you meet that learning target, or tell me about that character. Anybody want to add to that? Well, and so it's not complete. Well, what about? So I'll bring up a question to try to get at it. Or if there's a misconception, I can identify it. So it's important to get to that place. Bring that lesson full circle. Discuss questions created in advance, which I have done. Of course, we're going to assess the mastery, and then meaningful homework. And so you're creating a philosophy of homework that's going to carry you into your teaching career, that you can share with potential administrators as you are going in for hire. Also for parents. It's very important to be able to defend why you do what you do. And to be able to defend it with research is very powerful. That doesn't mean you have to be uppity and snotty about it, right? But you can, sit down and talk to them about it and show, I'm doing this because based on research, this is what it says. This is our best knowledge at this time. And it could change, right? Because research sometimes reveals new findings. So that's, and then the rest of this is, just some examples. Okay? And the rain, I think, is coming down hard. I'm hearing it, or maybe I'm not hearing it. Maybe it's the air.
It's the air, yeah.
It's the air, okay. All right. Hey, could you hear it?
Has an umbrella up.
I know, right?
I was terrified for a second, I thought I didn't have
Sorry.
my nose here.
Okay, questions for me. Good job today, guys. Great job with the audience. I really appreciate the questions. Sometimes the audience is a little quieter. You keep your 3x5 cards, and if you'll make sure that your characters, like this, your character, you can keep your article, and if you put your character sheets back together,
Our article?
if you would like to, like,
Copy of it?
if you would like to, yes. Especially if you wrote on them.
I did not, but I
We'll
might
take
wanna
one of
use it
each.
for the. Do we have a doc, is that a doc cam?
It is.
Does it
You
work?
can use it, yes, it does.
Just thinking ahead for my,
Yes.
Put that on.
Where is it? Here. You want me to go ahead and use that one? Yeah, just, take it off so they can't see on the screen there.
Kenneth, are you going to get food in between classes again?
Yes.
Where do you go?
I'm going to over to Panda real quick.
Where is it?
Panda Express.
Do they have anything like little that would be full of a million grams of carbs?
You can do like, I always get, I'm kind of worried that some of it too, but you can get like a bowl so it has like rice and chicken.
You want to use those? Oh, but you can get, they give you a bowl of vegetables.
Okay.
Stir fried
they-
vegetables.
they-
They're good.
It's like $5, you think that'll cover?
Yeah, that's fine.
Would you mind?
Yeah, it's like $3 or something.
As I like volunteer, will you get it for
Like,
me?
this is some real deal stuff, this affects you in 6 months.
Alright,
This is like
right.
down the road. This is
How do I take off the screen?
Yeah.
You know, most of them are already 18, they have
Yeah.
jobs, they drive and all that, so this is like, yeah, some of
Only
them
have more cash on me, but
are gonna be, well,
it's working on my budgeting skills, so having cash is easier not to overspend.
This is stuff that applies to you, and so, I have some.
All right.
I love it. What's up?
Have a good day, stay dry, see you Tuesday.
Yeah,
I'll be here.
Okay, make sure you're here.
But not next Thursday.
But not next Thursday. I'm glad you emailed me, Eileen, because I was like, oh, she's coming. Anyway.
Just want to,
Just got
we don't want any kind of meat or anything like that? Cool. Gotcha.
I think it's tofu, I'll do tofu.
I can check, I'm not sure, I've never gotten it, so I'm not positive.
I don't trust chicken at some of those places, it's a little
Panda
early.
Express, I like Panda personally.
We do, well, I mean, it's not that I don't like the flavor combos, but sometimes like the fast food places, their chicken tastes like plastic.
Yeah. They have a place in there called Dippers, it took over Popeyes, and it's not very good.
No. Thank you, Kenneth.
Yep.
Hola.
Next time I'll-
Hi, I have
Oh, I
my
gotta stop this. I stopped.